Ladies and gentlemen, sprinting fans across the globe, welcome back. If you thought you had seen everything track and field had to offer, think again. Because what unfolded at the 2026 Power Core Stawell Gift in Victoria, Australia, was not just another race. It was a performance that will echo through the history of sprinting for decades to come. Sha'Carri Richardson didn't just win. She rewrote the record books, became only the third woman in 144 years to win this race off scratch, and did it in a time so outrageous that it left analysts stunned, rivals humbled, and an entire town on their feet. But before we break down the heats, the semifinal, and that unforgettable final, we need to talk about what makes this event so special. Because if you don't understand the Stawell Gift, you cannot truly appreciate what Sha'Carri pulled off this Easter Monday. The Stawell Gift is unlike any other race in the world. Held every Easter weekend at Central Park in the small regional town of Stawell, Victoria, roughly 235 kilometers west of Melbourne, it is Australia's oldest professional foot race, dating all the way back to 1878. In 2026, the event celebrated its 144th edition. Let that sink in. 144 years of history, and what happened this year sits at the very top of all of it. The distance is 120 meters, the surface is grass, and the track has a slight uphill incline, meaning this is not a fast, flat synthetic surface where world records get broken. This is raw, old-school, demanding competition. Now here is the twist that makes this event so uniquely brutal for elite athletes. The Stawell Gift operates on a handicap system. Every runner is assigned a starting mark based on their ability and recent form. Recreational runners might get a head start of 8, 9, or even 10 meters. But if you are one of the fastest women alive, if you are Sha'Carri Richardson, you start from what is called scratch, 0 meters. The gun fires and the entire field is already ahead of you. You have to run down every single one of them across 120 meters of uphill grass just to reach the finish line first. It is, by design, one of the hardest things a sprinter can be asked to do. This year's event attracted over 700 competitors and carried a total prize purse of 155,000 Australian dollars, with 40,000 Australian dollars going to the women's gift winner alone. Legends like Kathy Freeman, Asafa Powell, and Linford Christie have all raced here. And in 2026, it got its most famous and dominant women's winner in the event's entire history. Sha'Carri Richardson arrived at Stawell with something interesting to prove. This was not just any competition. This was her very first race of the 2026 outdoor season. No warm-up meet, no low-key invitational to shake off the rust. Straight to Stawell, straight to grass, straight into the deep end. In her heat, she lined up from scratch with her nearest competitor holding a 10-meter advantage, the maximum gap. Into a headwind, she hunted the field down and crossed the line in 13.815 seconds. On paper, that might not sound explosive, but think about what she was doing. 120 meters, from the back of the field, on a grass track, going uphill, into the wind, in her first competitive run of the year. The fact that she won that heat comfortably was already a statement. Her own words after the race said everything about her mindset. She described it as feeling like a kid again, playing tag, playing rabbit, and said it felt like knocking the dust off after her first run of the season. Relaxed, confident, and already enjoying herself. That is exactly the headspace you want a sprinter in before a big weekend. Christian Coleman, Sha'Carri's partner and the former 100 meters world champion, also ran in the men's heats from scratch. He won his heat in 12.681 seconds in a very tight finish, just pipping front marker John Howe before the line. The energy around both athletes throughout that Saturday was electric, and the crowd in Stawell already knew they were in for something special over the next 2 days. By Easter Monday, the competition had sharpened considerably. In her semifinal, Sha'Carri faced front marker Hallie Martin, who held a 10-meter head start. Richardson got out of the blocks cleanly, built through her acceleration phase, and drove hard to the line. But she rose slightly too soon before the finish, and for a terrifying moment, it looked like Hallie Martin was going to steal it right from under her nose. She held on. By 0.07 of a second, a photo finish that had everyone in the stadium holding their breath. Her time was 13.53 seconds, a significant 0.29-second improvement on her heat performance, which already told you the gears were shifting. What she said afterward was telling. Speaking about her race approach, she mentioned working with her coach Dennis Mitchell on staying calm, executing the plan, and crucially, running through the line. Not rising early, not admiring the win before it was done. Running through the line. She had identified the exact thing that nearly cost her the semifinal, and she filed it away for the final just a few hours later. That kind of composure and self-awareness under pressure is what separates great athletes from legendary ones. Meanwhile, Christian Coleman's campaign came to an end. He finished fifth in his semifinal in 12.48 seconds. He was gracious about it afterward, acknowledging that when you give away that much of a head start in this format, it is just extremely tough to make it back. And he is right. This handicap system is unforgiving, and even one of the fastest starters in the history of sprinting could not bridge that gap. But watch this space with Coleman. If he sharpens his running endurance to match those explosive starts, he is going to cause problems in formats like this down the line. I want you to take a moment before we get into this because what followed was one of the most memorable individual performances I have ever seen in any sprint event. Not just the Stawell Gift, but anywhere, on any surface, in any format. Sha'Carri Richardson stood at the scratch mark. Charlotte Nielsen, the 19-year-old Australian favorite and the race's pre-final frontrunner, had a 9-meter head start. The other finalists also carried significant advantages. From where Sha'Carri was standing, the entire field was gone before she even took a step. Then a false start, a delay. Nerves stretched to breaking point across the entire stadium. But Sha'Carri handled it with complete composure. When the gun fired again, she was ready. She was patient in those crucial first 10 meters, executing exactly what Dennis Mitchell had told her to do. Then the acceleration came, smooth, powerful, relentless. By 60 meters, she was eating into the gap. By 90 meters, she later told reporters she already knew the race was hers. And in those final 30 meters, she detonated. She stormed past Charlotte Nielsen and the entire field and crossed the line with authority. Her time, 13.07 seconds. The crowd erupted. The commentators lost their minds, and they were absolutely right to, because that 13.07 was the fastest time ever recorded by a woman at the Stawell Gift since the race moved to 120 meters in 2006. Charlotte Nielsen, who ran a brilliant race herself, finished in 13.12. Chiara Santiglia was third in 13.29. But the story was all one person. Sha'Carri Richardson became only the third woman in 144 years of this event to win from scratch. Melissa Jefferson of Australia did it first in 2012, clocking 13.52. Prix Rizzo repeated the achievement in 2025, also running 13.52. And now, in 2026, Richardson did not just join that list. She left the entire list behind, running nearly half a second faster than anyone before her on the same grass, the same hill, from the same starting mark. In sprinting terms, half a second is not a margin. It is a different dimension. Now this is where it gets seriously interesting, because I think casual fans underestimate just how eye-watering that 13.07 actually is when you put it next to the fastest performances ever seen in women's sprinting. Let us compare splits. At the 2025 London Diamond League, Julien Alfred, the reigning Olympic 100-meter champion from St. Lucia, produced one of the greatest 200-meter runs in history, clocking 21.71 seconds and moving into the joint 9th fastest women's 200-meter performance of all time. When you extract her 120-meter split from that run, she came through in approximately 13.18 seconds, on a synthetic track, on a flat surface, in one of the greatest 200-meter performances ever run. Sha'Carri Richardson, on a grass track going uphill at the start of April, ran 13.07. That is faster. Now, to be completely honest, and this matters, Alfred was running on a curve for the first 80 meters of that 200 meters, and curves are inherently slower than straight-line sprinting. If she had run a pure 120-meter straight, she would almost certainly have gone faster than 13.18. That context is important, and we should not pretend otherwise. But even with that honest caveat sitting on the table, the idea that Sha'Carri is producing these kinds of numbers at the very start of her season, on a grass incline, before she has even run a proper 100 meters on a track, that is genuinely extraordinary. And for further context, Shericka Jackson, whose 21.41 personal best is the second fastest women's 200 meters in history, split approximately 13.38 through 120 meters during her Diamond League 200 meters run last season. Sha'Carri just ran faster than that, on grass, going uphill. The numbers are almost impossible to process. Analysts estimate she passed the 100-meter mark during the Stawell final in somewhere around 11.0 to 11.05 seconds. If that conversion holds anywhere near true on a flat synthetic track, it suggests she is already in 10.9 territory, potentially her best form since her 2023 World Championship season. Her legal personal best of 10.65, set when she won gold in Budapest in August 2023, remains the benchmark. But that benchmark is starting to look reachable again, and the results since Stawell have done absolutely nothing to contradict that. Because here is what makes the Stawell performance even more significant. It was not a one-off. It was the first brick in a wall that has been building higher every single month since. After Stawell in April, Richardson entered a pair of Diamond League 200-meter races in China, in Shanghai and Xiamen, finishing fourth on both occasions. Those were valuable competitive miles in her legs after an injury-shortened 2025 season, where she had finished fifth at the World Championships in Tokyo with a best of 10.94. She was clearly building, not peaking. Then in June, she showed up to the LA Grand Prix and won the 100 meters in 10.99. Solid opening statement. A week after that, she went to the Star Athletic Sprint Series in Florida and ran 10.77, her fastest legal 100 meters in 2 years, and the second fastest time in the world so far this season. From April on grass to 10.77 on the track in June, the trajectory is steep, and it is pointing in one very clear direction. The Rivalries. Who can stop her? The 2026 women's sprint landscape is as deep as it has ever been, and Sha'Carri knows the road ahead is not going to get easier. Melissa Jefferson-Wooden is the reigning world 100-meter champion, having won gold in Tokyo at the 2025 World Championships. She is consistent, she has championship pedigree, and she showed sharp form at the Prix Classic. She is arguably the most complete 100-meter sprinter in the world right now, and Sha'Carri will need to be at her absolute best to beat her when it matters. Julien Alfred is a different kind of dangerous. The Olympic 100-meter gold medalist from the Paris 2024 Games is a terrifying competitor. Explosive off the blocks, relentless in the drive phase, and improving every single season. She ran 21.71 in the 200 meters last year, has already been in world-leading form indoors in 2026, and is widely viewed as the closest thing to unbeatable in the 100 meters when she is right. Shericka Jackson is back, and she is hungry. After some injury disruption over recent seasons, she arrived at the Shanghai Diamond League this year and immediately ran 22.07 in her very first 200 meters of the season. The woman has a personal best of 21.41, the second fastest 200 meters in history, and when she is healthy and motivated, she is one of the most dominant sprinters the sport has ever seen. And then there is Elaine Thompson-Herah, the double Olympic champion, who is always a factor when she is fit. Her experience at major championships is unmatched, and she has a way of finding another gear when the stakes are highest. Against that field, Sha'Carri Richardson is going to be tested, but right now she looks ready. The 10.77 in Florida, the Stawell performance in April, the steady build through the Diamond League, all of it points to an athlete who has found form at exactly the right time. Sha'Carri Richardson's victory at the 2026 Stawell Gift matters for reasons that go well beyond the time on the clock. Here was one of the most recognizable athletes on the planet choosing to travel to a small town in rural Victoria and compete in a 148-year-old grassroots foot race with genuine commitment and genuine respect for what the event represents. She did not phone it in. She did not treat it as a publicity appearance. She competed with complete professionalism, broke a record that had stood for nearly 2 decades, and then celebrated with a warmth and humility that won over an entire nation. Her words after the race said everything. "Thank you for having me. It feels truly humbling away from home being so appreciated on the track. I've just been enjoying it, having such a great time with all of you in Stawell, and I know this is the first of many." That right there is a champion who understands that sport is bigger than any one championship, any one circuit, any one country. The Stawell Gift had never seen a women's scratch winner faster than 13.52. Sha'Carri Richardson came in and ran 13.07 on grass, going uphill, from the back of the field, and made it look like it was always going to happen that way. So what does 13.07 at the Stawell Gift tell us about where Sha'Carri Richardson is heading in 2026? It tells us she arrived at the start of this season in frightening shape. It tells us the injury-disrupted 2025 campaign was a chapter closed, not a trajectory set. And given that she has already run 10.77 on the track less than 3 months later, it tells us that this building process is working. A genuine assault on her personal best of 10.65 from Budapest in 2023 is not wishful thinking anymore. It is a real possibility if she stays healthy and keeps this momentum rolling. But sprinting never comes easy, and the rivals surrounding her in 2026 are as talented as any field the women's sprints have ever produced. Melissa Jefferson-Wooden, Julien Alfred, Shericka Jackson, Elaine Thompson-Herah, any one of those names on any given day is capable of running something special. So the questions going forward are real, and they are fascinating. Is Sha'Carri Richardson unbeatable in 2026? Can she challenge the 10.65? Who is her biggest threat? Alfred, Jefferson, Jackson, or Thompson-Herah? And could 2026 be the year we look back on as the season she truly cemented her place among the all-time greats? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's debate it, let's celebrate it, and let's enjoy every single second of what is shaping up to be one of the most electric seasons in the history of women's sprinting. Because sprinting is alive, sprinting is electric, and right now, sprinting belongs to Sha'Carri Richardson. Thanks for watching, everyone. Until next time.